Welcome to the Huntivore Podcast, Episode 3. Today we sit down with Mike Fitzgerald of Omnivore Culture. We discuss sustainable living by growing, gathering, and hunting for our food. Here we go, folks. This is our first international interview here. We're reaching all the way across the border to the north here in Canada. We got Mike from Omnivore Culture. Big blog that's going online. He's an Instagram professional, I feel. He's got some great photography. Mike, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks, guys. And this is our first FaceTime. So this is pretty cool.
Excellent.
Breaking moment right here.
This is groundbreaking.
This is good stuff.
Between our easy no tensions for two nations.
Yes. It is, man, with our leader, everything's up in the air right now.
True diplomacy here.
Exactly. So, hey, Mike, tell us, what do you do as your mild-mannered profession? What do you do during the day?
Well, by day, I'm a machine operator. So if you were driving through farm country and you saw models wrapped in that white strap, I operate the machine that makes that.
Oh, gotcha. Big egg?
Yeah. Yes, very big egg. Yeah. So, and then by night and my days off, I'm all Omnivore Culture.
Yeah.
All right.
What got you started doing Omnivore Culture? That certainly wasn't those things your head popped off the pillow and said, you know what, I'm going this far extreme from Big Egg. I'm catching my own stuff. I'm growing my own food. How'd that come about?
Omnivore Culture came about just because I'm really into hunting. More than anything, I'm into hunting. But as far as self-sustainability goes, that seems to be where that ends. It ends with a lot of websites and stuff like that. It ends with the hunting. You don't really see like the growing your own food or foraging and stuff like that. That's only a piece of the story. So I'm new to this. This is all only 2.5 years old for me. I couldn't really find anybody going through all of it at once. So rather than just wait, I decided to start Omnivore Culture and just kind of document as I went along the trial and mostly errors of doing this. And there's been a lot of errors so far.
So one morning you just woke up and you said you were going to do the sustainability. Was there like a pivotal thing that said I got to make a big change, or was it just this has been something on your mind just egging on for a while?
3 years for sure. And at the beginning, when I was really chewing on the concept of it, I didn't have a whole lot of support coming from end of things, both myself and like at the time I was in a relationship where that wasn't feasible. She was a very hard vegan, and this kind of lifestyle doesn't bode well for that kind of relationship. So that relationship ended promptly, and that was kind of when I was like, this needs to start happening now. I'm not getting any younger. I've had the means to do it. Yeah, I dove in head first. For a guy that doesn't make a whole lot of money, I spent a lot of money on hunting and fishing. Well, I've been fishing for years, but not as a source of protein. Mostly couldn't release up until the last couple of years.
Well, that's supposed to be your biggest budget is hunting and fishing, so you're doing it right. For sure.
Guys, you wouldn't believe how much gardening can cost you when you're trying to grow food.
Well, that
I can imagine. You got a whole watering setup and then a fertilizing setup as well?
Yeah, with me being on a substantial body of water, a lot of the fertilizer that we get comes from fish carcasses that I end up freezing as fish emulsion in the spring. I've got contacts with farmers who I'm more than welcome to go over there and grab manure at any time. So it's a lot of freebies that just help get things moving along as well. It's been a lot of research, and like watching a garden die is like being eaten to death by ducks. Like it's the slowest process. It's not nearly as easy as like I thought. Like just growing a tomato plant would be, right? But I don't even know where to begin on that subject.
Do you take it personal, like when one of your beloved plants dies on you?
if I see like critters in my raspberry bushes, I know the 12 gauge is inside. It takes every ounce of me not to take that out of the gun cabinet and lay down the law.
Yeah, you got to worry about the plant behind the critter.
Yeah.
Yeah, sacrifice.
Yeah.
For the critter.
The weight, the pressure on growing some plants. I'll grow a few for just a hobby, making salsa, pickling some green beans. But what kind of stress goes on you when that is your food that's out there? You've got your acre or so, or is it multiple acres that you're putting together?
No, it's still very small scale. I don't have the property to completely sustain myself with what I grow. That's going to be something that comes in the future for sure. As far as like, I'm very attracted to the idea of what's called an edible landscape, where everything growing on your property gives you some source of food at some point in time in the year. So right now I'm in the process of removing things that, like hedges that, like nobody's eating a cedar hedge, right? So like removing that kind of stuff and putting in, saying like currant plants or raspberries or blueberry bushes, stuff like that gives off something at some point. Like for one example, I put 8 big blueberry bushes this year, which significant portion of the paycheck, and the pH level in the bay where I get my water was so high that it killed them all. Yeah, so it's like, the one thing I didn't read up on, and I mean, it looks like they went through a friggin' bonfire.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, so trial and error, right?
Exactly.
But
I do like the idea that you're going through is, if it's going to be around the house, if it's going to be on the property, it's got to have a purpose. You know, nothing is going to be just sitting idle.
Yeah, another important aspect of that is like pollination, where you need bees and stuff like that coming around, and that was something I overlooked a couple of years ago. I had nothing that bees would be attracted to, and I mean, nothing grew. So I've been putting in wildflower gardens and stuff like that, where the flowers themselves, if I wanted to eat them, completely edible, used for teas or whatever, if you're into teas. Mm-hmm. But they bring the bees around, and so far this year we've had a bumper crop of peas, beans, raspberries. I thought blueberries until the last 2 weeks. They got fried. But yeah, it's a huge learning curve that it never ends. There's no way it ends.
Yeah, I would have never have thought of working in pollinators into the food that I'm trying to eat. I would have been like, well, that's wasted ground. Why am I going to put a flower in there? But now that you say that,
it was a matter. A matter of reading up on like what would attract those insects into the garden that yet still can be used as a source of nutrition.
Yeah.
So like you can consume lavender, sage, stuff like that flower and are still herbs that you can use. Like you can chop up sage and put it on a steak. It's freaking awesome.
Oh yeah.
Right. So chives, the same thing too. Sunflowers, anything that bees can use and I can use, it's in there right now. And it's up on the Instagram page and blog too, right? I mean, like every day I'm posting about that kind of stuff.
Yeah, you've decided to go for this online route. What are you looking to just kind of document to yourself, or is it for, onlookers like ourselves? As we were looking around, I came across your page and I just like, this guy's an inspiration. What means, why are you going digital in a sustainable type diet?
Well, again, it's a lot of like the people that I follow on Instagram are incredibly inspirational guys that they're like Remy Warren, for example. Everybody in hunting knows who Remy Warren is, I think. And I see out hunting elk all fall and spearfishing in New Zealand, but at the same time, I don't know if the guy knows how to grow a tomato.
Yeah.
Right? And that's still part of the story as far as like full sustainability goes. And I wasn't really seeing any of that. So that's kind of where, I don't know, I guess like it's part of being the change you want to see.
Well, I'm fully on board with your change. I started looking around at mushrooms this year. First year I've started to look around at fungi, and I found one morel with help of somebody else. So it was like a treat. That was all that it was. It couldn't have sustained anything.
Yeah, we were having a discussion where I was saying that I think morels may be a myth. Because I spent a lot of time looking for them. And then I was stumbling around in the woods, and found what I thought was hen of the woods, and I was super excited and started asking around, and everybody's like, yeah, it's hen of the woods. I'm pretty sure it's hen of the woods. And then I started cooking it up, and it was super chewy. And black standing polypore. You know, there's one way to learn that it's not hen of the woods or hen of the woods.
Oh no.
Yeah, no good. So it's not gonna hurt me. So that's the good part of it. But now I'm really good. I'm proficient at being able to identify black standing polypore now. Learn the hard way.
That's why foraging mushroom scares the hell out of me.
Yeah.
It scares the hell out of me.
I did so much research going, there's no lookalikes that are going to hurt you. And I read that 1,000 times. And then I was like, okay. And then I asked a bunch of people, and they all reassured me incorrectly. Yeah, there's some knowledge gaps out there. And I was asking people that I would call, like, serious woodsmen. Like, people where this is their, kind of profession. So it was concerning. So, yeah, there's a lot of knowledge to be shared out there yet to get people along.
Oh, for sure. For sure there is. That's one aspect of this whole lifestyle that it terrifies me. Because, like, a morel looks like morel, right?
Right, yeah. That one's a good one.
Start getting into other mushrooms and fungus like that, and it's like, this one looks exactly like this one, only this one causes paralysis.
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to walk away from this whole endeavor right now.
How does liver failure sound to you? Pretty bad.
Well, we won't take that risk. Well, we started this... Yeah, definitely learning curve. We started this podcast because we felt like we wanted to see hunting take a trend maybe in the other way of not necessarily sustainability as much as you have, but what does hunting and fishing mean to you? What is its purpose today? You can go to the supermarket, and like you've tried to portray this self-sustainability. Do you see the trend going that way, or do we need to see the trend coming back in the hunting community?
That's a loaded question. It really is a little bit both. I think there's a place for both aspects of that, right? I find that more and more, like compared to when my parents were growing up, hunting and like that sort of backyard garden sort of thing was the norm back in the 50s and 60s and 70s. And I don't see that as much anymore. Like a lot of these deer camps that my uncles and my grandparents went to every November, they're not around anymore, and there's no new ones taking those places. I think it comes down to where we as a society want to go, to be honest, because right now we're in this weird limbo of everything just kind of like chaotic as far as you've got the millennials, right, who are trying to identify in so many different directions. I think there's a big movement towards hunting and self-sustainability that you see more and more now because of social media platforms like Instagram and Facebook. If I had to say it's moving in one direction, I think it's moving in the direction that largely it's always been, where it's kind of more of a pastime than a lifestyle. I still don't see like guys who live and die by hunting and fishing, as like a source of protein. But then there's the oddballs like you guys.
I totally agree with you.
In the right direction.
I
hope that answers your question.
Yeah, it
does.
Absolutely. I think that's kind of where we are at too, and I think from a sustainability standpoint, that's aspirational in nature for me. I know there's plenty of years where I'm going to have tag soup and I'm going to have to go to the supermarket, and I feel like that's kind of the norm around at least our local culture here.
I see more and more like the big buck grip and grins, going for inches, going for bone, and I'm a backstrap in the freezer type of person. It's going to be something that I want to eat. You can't eat the antlers, as that old phrase goes. So I'm encouraged by what you're saying about that. Is that as a generation comes up, we're looking at the right direction. We're hoping that sustainability, and we're hoping that free range food is the trend up rather than just a pastime that hunting isn't that important anymore, so we need to just stop doing that. That would be a nightmare, I feel, in our book.
For sure. The grip and grin buck is... I want to see more pictures of guys with does, to be honest with you.
Really?
Like, I want to see more does on the ground. Because growing up, I never had the opportunity to go to a deer camp or anything like that. But I knew people who did go, and in talking to them, it was always like, killing a doe is bad. You shouldn't do it. You don't kill does. And I think that especially deer hunting is going in a different direction from that, where like that's not the case anymore. Like if you take a photo with a doe, you should still be proud of a doe. And yeah, I genuinely like seeing photos of like, especially if like you show the animal and then the meal it becomes. I'm a huge fan of that.
Oh yeah,
I'm a big fan of those photos.
Well,
and
good
just showing that you're using the animal, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah.
We have a lot of that here too, with just as far as it's holdover culture of hunters from when there weren't that many deer in the landscape in this area. Taking a doe was really, it was going to have an impact on the amount of deer on the landscape because there weren't that many, and that shifted a long time ago. But that mentality of it being wrong still lingers in some cultures.
Yeah, some hunt camps.
Yeah, some hunt camps. It's definitely changing, but
yeah,
it's amazing how many years it's been since that's not the best deer management is not matched up with leaving the doe. It's decades and decades, but that still holds in some people's brains.
Yeah. I mean, when I'm out scouting, I get amped up when I find a well-worn doe trail. I'm like, yes, this is what I want to be seeing.
There we
I'm
go.
not too worried about nicks and scrapes.
Yeah.
But I mean, if I find a trail that looks like a hiking trail where no hiking trail is, yeah, we're on the right path.
You're in business, yeah.
Oh yeah.
All right, I got a heavy question for you. Hope you're ready for it. The true definition of a hoser. As one from Canada, what is a hoser?
What is a hoser? You know what? I don't even know if I can answer that. Maybe I'm not a true Canadian. I can't answer it. I don't know. You're asking the wrong Canadian.
Yeah, you're asking the wrong Canadian.
It's a bad thing, right? Or is it a good thing?
Well, like...
It depends. If you're with your hoser friends, it's okay, but if you're not, if you're called by somebody that's outside of your circle, then it's bad, maybe? I don't know.
Well, you know how you would throw like an insulting name at your friends, but you don't mean it insulting. You're just like saying it as like a hilarious word, like, oh yeah, I'm going out with my douchebags tonight or something like that.
Yeah.
My douchebag Big Rob. I think nowadays it's maybe used like that, but if I asked around, I don't think anybody else around here would know what a true definition is.
It's just died. All right. Well, the question stands. We'll have to find another Canadian to figure this out.
Oh my god.
Now you've gone from the garden. You've gone from the woods. You bring the meal in. When you're cooking a meal, what is your relationship now with that food? Are you almost on like that high end scale where you're gonna use the best ingredients for each dish, or is it I'm just gonna bring it in, cook it the way I normally have, or just run a mill, you throw on a little salt, throw on a little pepper, but utilize more of the animal? How is your approach to making dishes then?
It depends on the critter, for sure. Like goose breast, I just like to brine it and smoke it, and I can, it's been smoked. I can save that for a few weeks if I wanted to, if I do a big batch of it. But last spring, I took my first bear ever, and
congratulations, by the way.
Thank you. It didn't pan out this spring, unfortunately, but I was almost militant with how that meat got used. So in that case, I would say it's probably very dependent on the cut, where it comes from. I didn't ground any of it. Like I do a lot of like the offcuts. I would throw in the slow cooker and make whole bear poutine.
Ooh.
But it felt wrong, just like getting a bag of mozzarella cheese or something like that. So like I'd go to like an artisan cheese place down south here, and then like go to the farmer's market and buy the potatoes and cut them up and fry them myself and all that. Just make the gravy. Totally time-consuming, probably not necessary. But at the
ultimate
end of
respect.
This is the best poutine ever. It's like, yeah, that's how that's supposed to go. I think it depends on the animal. You know, I last year I was definitely fortunate enough to get a bunch of ducks in the freezer, and I wasn't too particular with how those mallards ended up, as long as they ended up in my gut.
Yeah.
Yeah, it depends on the critter. For sure it does.
In your lifestyle,
Yeah.
does it make you a generalist at that point? Because you've covered across the board: bear, venison, ducks. Like you take opportunity on every season. Then
I will not pull the trigger on a porcupine. It might be one of the best animals I've ever eaten. Believe it or not.
Really?
whoa,
I would never pass up the opportunity to take a porcupine. And you can do anything with them, and nobody eats them. It's like they see those quills, and don't want anything to do with it. You're missing out on an incredible meal.
It's a nuisance animal here too. So
well, we need to get after
Yeah.
Porcupines.
there we go.
Yeah,
Well, they come with their own shish kebab
Yeah.
sticks.
I like it. Is that a bad idea?
Nice. Right? Yeah. But it's the same thing here in Ontario. There's no season. They're not regulated. You can hunt them whenever you want, and nobody goes out looking for them, and they're one of the best meals, as far as small game goes, that you can find out here. And, I mean, that's coming from someone who last year ate, I was fortunate enough that somebody hit a beaver with a car. I can't hunt beaver or trap them. I don't have a license. But that meat went in the freezer. It was fantastic, but it just touched on how good porcupine is.
I have some opportunity after we have some beaver up on some property that I hunt, and I have not successfully trapped one yet, but I have some aspirations of getting one of those. Last year I said I was going to, and it never happened. So this year's the year where I put the effort in, because I really want to do some of that, get one of those guys.
If you've got like a Cabela's near you, you can get the scent from their castor gland, and apparently it's like magic. Like they'll come right and do it.
That's in my future.
All right, we're on our way to Cabela's, I guess, later. So you were telling us like a little bit about your hunting. What was your first animal that you took? And or if you don't remember that, what was your first bite of wild game that made this like, this is a lifestyle that I'm doing?
The first animal I ever took, that would have been Snowshoe Hare back in 2016. Yeah, 2016. That's a tragic story because it was so close, and I had a full choke on my shotgun. And
You gave him every pellet.
I got it, but unfortunately, I'm embarrassed to say, but I did not eat that animal. There just wasn't enough of it left, unfortunately, and that was a mistake that believe it or not, I actually took really hard, because that was the first thing I ever shot, and I ruined it.
Yeah.
I didn't think the shot through. I mean, it was probably from one end of your trailer to the other, away from me.
Oh, geez.
Yeah.
You can imagine what a full choke does.
Yeah, that's bad news right there.
Grab it. Yeah. That was a big learning curve there too, because like I said, I didn't think at all when I pulled the trigger on that. It paid with its life. And then the first bit of wild game, actually eating wild game, would have been probably moose sausage, but I didn't shoot that animal either. That was brought down from another hunt camp way north of me. It was so different. It was so different from anything. Like, up until then, I had beef, and that was it.
Yeah.
And it was so different. And I just kept thinking, like, after having it, that, like, what else tastes so different? Like, could possibly taste different from that? That sent me down the road. I don't know if you guys are familiar with Hank Shaw, but that sent me down a road down his podcast and website. He used to have a podcast. I don't think he does it anymore, unfortunately.
No, he got into book writing. I was a devout follower of his podcast, and then that thing dried right up.
He had a good podcast. But I got Duck Goose and followed his website almost religiously for a while there, and the stuff that he was cooking up and eating, like it opened a door to what was possible as far as table fare goes. Yeah, it just kind of took my own direction from there.
Good
But
deal.
I mean, everything I've done is inspired by somebody else who, like, you know, does something similar. But
Yeah, you put your own twist on it. It is nice to find another Hank Shaw disciple. That's good. We're going to get down to our creme de la creme here. This is our question that we're asking everybody. I've got a 2-dish breakdown. So you're going to break down 2 dishes for us. You're not going to leave out any details. You're going to tell me how you're cooking it. You're going to tell me what spices you're throwing onto it. You can improvise as you're going along here. But first one is, you've only been in it for 2 years. You had moose sausage as your first. If you were to serve wild game to another non-hunter, so it's almost like, you're serving to yourself 2 years ago. In what you've learned, what would you serve them now?
Definitely pulled bear poutine.
Pulled bear
For
poutine.
Sure. Without a doubt. Without a doubt. My reason for that is because it's very familiar. It looks familiar, it's like, this is poutine. That's what that is. Yeah. And I should hope everybody's familiar with French fries and gravy with a little bit of pulled meat on it.
Yeah,
exactly.
for sure.
So yeah, it looks familiar. And bear meat, you can do so much with it. Like, you can overcook it. It's still moist in the middle. You shouldn't undercook it because that's how people get trichinosis.
Yeah, that's bad.
But you can do a lot with it, and it tastes. If you just have like a chunk of bear meat that's cooked, well done, even medium, it tastes like it has a certain flavor to it that you're like, I've had something like this before, but not quite. So it would be pulled bear poutine.
Gotcha.
That's definitely one. Yeah.
That's funny. I just talked to somebody this past weekend, and they were like, you can eat bear? Because I had mentioned bear was a season, and yeah, people eat bear. They survive on bear. I need to cook them up some bear poutine.
If I could survive on one animal, it would be black bear. For sure.
I feel like there's some cool factor, too, if you're doing the whole wild game diplomacy and you give somebody a bear dish, they can be proud and be like, I had bear. Like, that's a cool experience.
Last year.
Yeah.
I got that so many times having friends over and be like, hey, I know you've only got so much bear meat left, but could you maybe do some just so I could say I've eaten bear?
Yeah.
All right.
A little novelty to it there.
For our second dish, it's date night. You're taking the lady out. Actually, no, you're keeping the lady in because you're cooking. What do you serve as a rich, flavorful, overwhelming dish to kind of set the night right? What are you going to cook? And don't hold back any details of the meal.
Right.
You save those other details for you. I just want to know about the meal.
The whole thing.
The whole thing.
The whole thing. Okay. So we go in the freezer and we pull out some of that snowshoe hare that's sitting in there.
The one full of pellets?
No,
not that one.
Headshots, buddy.
There we go.
No pellets in these rabbits. Pull out that snowshoe hare and you thaw it out. And it's already corned, so it's in pieces. You toss it in a Ziploc bag with a cup and a half of red wine. The cheaper the better because it's more sugary, and that helps.
All right.
Let it sit for 6 hours. You get your olive oil in a saucepan. Heat it up, and after 6 hours, you put the snowshoe hare in the oil, brown it up.
You cooking it on cast iron, or are you going stainless? What are you cooking it in? Crock pot?
Oh, okay. So stainless steel saucepan.
Stainless steel sauce.
There you add sliced carrots, celery. What else? Whole cloves of garlic.
Ooh.
Keep that in the oil after you've removed the snowshoe hare, after it's been browned, and you let that simmer for a bit until the onions are just like kind of transparent, just a little loose. From there, you add half cup of chicken stock, full cup of whatever tomato sauce, or you can make it from scratch. I don't, because making that is just time consuming, and I don't have time. I don't even grow tomatoes anymore, so
gave up on the tomatoes.
But she won't know.
Yeah, she won't know.
So your vegetables and garlic and all that, they are caramelized as good as they're going to get. You add your sauce and your chicken stock. What else? From there, that should bring everything up to about halfway up the side of the saucepan. Then you re-add the snowshoe hare. Let it cook for about 15 minutes as the sauce is boiling. After 15 minutes, pull it out with a fork and a knife. Peel the meat off the bone. Let it sit for a bit. From there, you're going to use another quarter cup of red wine that you haven't used yet. Put that in, mix it up, and with that, it'll scrape all the stuff that's stuck to the bottom up.
Gotcha, like a deglaze. Get all that off the bottom.
Doesn't hurt anything. Re-add the meat and simmer for half an hour. And while that's simmering for half an hour, you take the block of artisan cheese that you bought from Black River Cheese. Okay? And you grate that and get another pot going with salted water. Put your noodles in that, whatever noodles you choose to use. I like the spiral ones because they're fun.
Yeah.
And then you mix it all together when the noodles are nice and soft, and serve that with your cheese, chopped chives, and green onions. And hopefully you remember to get some kind of fancy French bread, because you're sparing no expense with this.
Exactly.
And serve that with whatever kind of wine she likes that you asked about prior to all this.
Not the cheap stuff, though,
Not
right?
the cheap stuff. We've already cooked with it.
That night's going to be going really well for you. I guarantee you.
That is. Hey, thank you. We may or may not write that down in the show notes, if that's all right.
The guarantee. I like
the
it.
The guarantee.
It's from a... Actually, it's... we won't tell anybody about this, but...
there you
I
go.
know that one.
that man's a genius.
He is. Fellow Michigander, too.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's where I'd go with that.
I like it.
Hey, Dustin, you got anything to ask?
I don't have anything to ask, but I feel like my mind has been expanded to even further reaches within what there is for us to do out here as Omnivores. I'm excited for this fall and new adventures and finding my own grub, making it with love.
Yeah. I mean, it's not just the search for fauna; it's now the search for the flora. If we're gonna dive into this, you got to go full circle. And Mike, you've introduced us to that and educated us a little bit. We appreciate that.
I appreciate you guys having me on. I really do. It's great that people have an outlet to be able to talk about this sort of subject. Whereas 10, 15 years ago, there was nothing. There really wasn't. You might find a book or a magazine article here and there, but otherwise, podcasts like yours and Urban Outdoorsman is another good one for beginners in all aspects of the outdoors. That they're great sources of information for people who want to get into it and don't know how.
Yeah, technology's been great for this movement.
Yeah, we need more of this. We really do. It's a great step in the right direction. For sure it is.
What I wanted to do is just give you a moment to do just a shameless plug. Where can people find your blog at?
If you go to Google, type in www.omnivoreculture.com. We're there, obviously. That's where the blog is. But on social media too, just punch in Omnivore Culture and you'll find me there. And I try to post on social media at least twice a day. And I've been slacking on articles on the blog lately just because it's summer and there's a lot to do. And I'll use that same excuse in the fall when I'm not posting because there's so much to do. But yeah, we've definitely got some half decent content on there that I'm proud of.
Excellent.
So yeah, if folks want to find me, that's where you can find me.
Awesome.
Beautiful.
Well, Mike, I'd love to talk further, but my system's falling apart.
Everything is failing. 3 devices failing currently.
Exactly. But hey, thanks for taking your time to chatting with us, and yeah, we look forward to more posts from the Omnivore Culture.
Thanks, guys. I really do appreciate it. This has been a lot of fun, despite everything. It's been a lot of fun.
It's only going to get better.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll get you next year, and we can do another episode.
That's the Omnivore promise. It's only going to get better.
You guys can count on me, for sure.
Cool.
Awesome.
For sure.
Well, hey, have a nice night, Mike.
You too. Take care, guys.
Thanks. Hey, folks, thanks again for tuning in to another episode. Dustin, let the people know where they can find us.
We are on Stitcher, Google Play Music, iTunes, Podcast Addict, and SoundCloud. And hey, reach out to us, give us a comment. You know, if you got some topics for us, some questions, maybe a correction for us, even though we don't make any mistakes. Omnivore@gmail or Omnivore Podcast on Facebook and Instagram. And hey, leave us a review while you're at it.
Yeah, in fact, with reviews, I want to shout out to Scoots4545 dropping us our first review. He's also giving you a consumer warning. Don't listen to this podcast if you are hungry. We're just going to make you even more hungry at that point. So, hey, thanks, Scoots. And folks, have a good night.